So, you've discovered Digital Combat Simulator, or DCS World. Looks pretty sweet, right? Don't let the crumb-covered Tomcat and Phoenix missiles fool you though. This is a hard game to play, but it's not impossible. So if you wanted just a taste of DCS World, a kind of digital combat appetizer, if you will, I'll show you just how to do that using a very simple gamepad layout, the free Su-25T Frogfoot, and a basic free flight mission. And who knows, maybe after this, you'll go for the full course meal and take your DCS World experience to the next level. First things first, let's make sure we're all on the same settings, aircraft and instant action mission in DCS. But before we even start DCS, make sure your controller is connected to your PC, whether it's wired or wireless. Then launch DCS. And from the main menu, go to the gear icon for options, gameplay, and make sure any game-related modes are not checked. Hit OK. Then, go to Instant Action, select the Caucasus map, select the Su-25T, and select Free Flight at Minvodi. Once this mission is loaded, we'll press the green Fly button and immediately hit Escape. And from here, select Adjust Controls. If your controls page looks like this, it's because you have Foldable View checked. Make sure this is unchecked. Next, select Su-25T if it isn't already, as well as the All But Access Commands category. Note, if you cannot find your gamepad device, ensure it's connected to your PC like I mentioned before, and if you still can't see it, try clicking the button Rescan Devices. And if you still can't find it, I honestly can't help you anymore, you're gonna have to figure that out. And one last precondition item, let's make sure we remove any default bindings by selecting any cell under our gamepad device, then clicking Clear Category. And then let's do the same thing under Access Commands. And now we're finally ready to start setting up our controls. First, find Pitch under Access Commands and select the cell under your gamepad device. Now either double-click that cell or select Add to open the binding window. From here, wiggle your left thumbstick up and down, and DCS will automatically detect it. Then press OK. Next, find Roll and open the binding window. Wiggle your left thumbstick left and right until DCS detects it, and then press OK. Next, find Rudder and open the binding window. Then pull the left trigger, and if it's still not detected, let go of the left trigger and then pull the right trigger. Then press OK. And now we'll need to make some slight axis tuning adjustments to the axes we just bound. The first, and maybe the most obvious one, being the rudder. So let's check that out by pressing OK to save our changes and start flying. If you find that pulling left trigger pushes the nose to the right, and pulling right trigger pushes the nose to the left, then you know you need to invert the rudder axis. So let's go back to Adjust Controls, and in order to invert an axis, go to it, select it, and then click the Axis Tune button. From here, check the Invert option and then press OK, and then OK again to save. Now the left trigger will push the nose to the left, and the right trigger will push the nose to the right. Keep in mind, sometimes the invert option doesn't always stick until the mission or even the entire game has been restarted. So if you find it still isn't inverted despite setting this in Axis Tune, try reloading the mission or just restart the whole game and try again. And now let's also Axis Tune Pitch and Roll to include a small dead zone. It's possible you don't need this, but if you have some stick drift in your thumbstick, you'll want a dead zone to counter this. I generally recommend a dead zone setting between 7 and 10, but it's possible you'll need more or even less than my recommendation. All you really need to do is do your best to make sure that these two red squares become one red square with some room to spare when not touching the controls. And finally, for our last set of axis binds, let's set up a way to look around. In DCS, this will be the absolute camera horizontal and vertical views. To do this, set both of these to your right thumbstick, where vertical is up and down on the right stick, and horizontal is left and right. Next, Axis tune both of these controls so that they both have a dead zone of 10 and saturation Y of 50. Now let's hit OK to save our changes and give the right stick a quick test. Up should move the camera up, down should move it down, and same thing for right and left. And that's all the bindings for your thumbsticks and triggers, so now we can move on to the buttons. Before we move on to buttons, there's a few ways to find controls we're looking for, but the most useful is this category drop down here, specifically the search option at the top. By selecting search, you can then type the control name you're looking for. In our case, let's go ahead and type throttle to bring up all controls with the word throttle in it. Now keep in mind, the name of these controls might change over time. So when setting up binds, make sure you choose the throttle option that has a default keyboard bind of plus and minus on the numpad. Now let's set throttle up to the right face button and throttle down to the bottom face button. Next, we will also bind the trim directions. Search for trim and bind each trim direction to the matching D-pad direction. Trim up to D-pad down, trim down to D-pad up, trim left to D-pad left, and finally, trim right to D-pad right. Next will be the controls that are important for the combat part of Digital Combat Simulator. These controls are weapon fire on right bumper, cannon on left bumper, weapon change on right stick click, flare on the left face button, and chaff on the top face button. And finally, we'll also bind a few important modes to help us be combat effective. The first is navigation mode on left stick click. Next, longitudinal missile aiming mode on start, and air to ground mode on select. And just like that, you have a simple set of controls to give you a taste of what it's like to fly in DCS World. You'll be able to fly freely around the Caucasus map, pop flares and chaff in case a missile happens to be coming your way, and even shoot at things with your cannon, your air-to-air missiles, and even rockets, but you won't have access to smarter weapons that are laser-guided like Vickers. And all of this is done with a simple gamepad layout. This is just the beginning. If you find DCS World to be a fun experience, then please consider taking your controls to the next level and really learn what it's like to be a fighter pilot, but with a gamepad. I hope you enjoyed this bite-sized take on DCS, and maybe we'll see you in the skies. But until then, if you like this video, please leave a like, and if you really liked it and would like to see more of this kind of stuff, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and tune in next time for some more DCS World content. Take care, guys. Have a nice day.